Apparently, my father's name dies with me. My grandmother birthed my father and my two aunts. I am my father's only son and only child in general. I was supposed to have a sister, but alas, my mom had a miscarriage, and that wouldn't really change much anyway, because, like property, when women get married, they're given their husband's last name. But fortunately, there are people out there bucking those trends today, but for the most part, that's how marriage works. But, anyways. Is it cruel of me to say I don't really care? Because that is justification for some people in my family to be like, have kids, continue your father's last name. And my father tells me, continue the family's last name, please. And it really doesn't sway me to have kids at all because I have always held the stance that I do not want kids. I want to live a life without any kids. I feel like I'll be happier without kids, and I don't think I'd make a good parent at all. I've already made my distaste in children more than clear in the past on this channel, so I'm not going to get into that here. I'm more going to talk about society's expectations of you to have children, to marry and have children, lead the life that they expect you to lead, instead of leading the life that you choose to lead. I've also stated in the past on this channel that I don't really have much desire to marry, but I'll concede a little on this. Maybe if I ever find the right person, I'll decide that this is the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, and thus I'll marry them, maybe. But children, I really don't see that changing because ever since I was a kid, I never had any desire to have children. I would see parents with their children screaming and crying, and the parents getting all frustrated. And even as a child, I was like, this doesn't really seem that appealing to me. People make parenting sound like it's a fucking fairy tale, and then I see the reality of it right in front of me. And I'm sure there are plenty of good moments when having children. There are definitely plenty of good moments when having children. I'm not going to deny that, but for me, the hardships kind of outweigh the benefits of having children and outweigh the magic of having children. I am a very impatient and irritable person. I know those are things that I should definitely work on, but I feel like if a child wakes me up in the middle of the night screaming their head off and crying, and then I have to get out of bed and comfort that child in hopes that they would fall asleep, I don't know how I would really handle that situation. I feel like I wouldn't hurt the child, of course, or anything, but I would definitely get very frustrated and I wouldn't really diffuse the situation well. And there are definitely instances in a child's life growing up where I would definitely be impatient and irritable. And I remember my father being the same exact way with me when I was a child, and I fucking hated it, okay? I do kind of attribute that to getting anxiety and having other issues with me as well, even though I've more than forgiven my father at this point. Me and him have reestablished a relationship since my maternal grandmother passed away in September, but anyways, I still do attribute a lot of his treatment of me and a lot of his treatment of my mother that I witnessed as a child to a lot of what's wrong with me today. He was very quick to ridicule every time I didn't exactly live up to his standards as a child. Like, for example, he forced me to play baseball with him, even though I had no desire to play baseball, and he just couldn't accept that, and whenever I would fuck up while we were playing baseball, maybe I wouldn't hit the ball, or I would do this wrong, I would do that wrong, instead of kindly and politely and calmly explaining to me what I should do instead and how to improve, he would fly off the fucking handle, scream, and just overall make me feel like shit at age 5. And I do notice, while it's not as severe, I do have that same irritability that he has, and I'm kind of afraid that I would become him if I were to be a father. I would treat a child the same exact way, and the child would grow up to be like me, an overly anxious person who suffers from depression and can't even grow up to a person without freaking the fuck out and fearing judgment. And that is pretty much why I do not want a child. And people try telling me, oh, having a child is so special and magical. The moment you're holding that child in your arms after they leave the womb, you're gonna realize that this is your purpose in life. You're gonna be so overflowed with happiness. I'm sure that's how people normally feel when their child is first born. I mean, how could they not feel that way? But I'm talking about afterwards. What about when that euphoria wears off and that child is living in a home filled with abuse? And again, I'm not saying I'm going to be that way if I ever become a father, which is almost certainly not gonna fucking happen, but I'm saying, in general, children that grow up in awful, awful homes, you can say that the parents, when they first had that child, felt that magic and happiness too, but afterwards, that child is leading a pretty shitty life at the hands of really, really awful parents. And I am sure those same shitty parents were probably told that having a child is so beautiful, magical, they'll feel so much happiness when that child is born. I'm just so sick of the pressure that so many people place onto others when it comes to having children. Not everyone is equipped to be a parent. Parenting is something that not everyone on this planet can do. Maybe if it wasn't so deep-rooted within our minds that we have to procreate, maybe, just maybe, there wouldn't be as many shitty parents out there bringing up children who might also become really shitty people when they grow up. Let people live life the way they choose to live it, and if they choose to live life without a child, well, that is completely on them, and that is completely out of your control. My mom is always like, I want to be a grandma, please give me a grandchild or grandchildren, and I'm like, well, I don't want to be a father. Too bad. You're asking me to make a huge, life-altering decision just based on something you want, and I'm sorry. I don't want kids, and that is my decision. You don't have control over what I choose to do with my own life and what I choose to do with my own body. I just really wish more people would come to accept this and we finally destigmatize people that don't want children because, again, not everyone is equipped to have a child. Not everyone is equipped to parent a child. So if one chooses to not have a child that they feel like they wouldn't do a good job parenting, well, they're probably doing society a favor. And you want to know who they're giving the biggest favor to? That unborn child, sparing them of possibly a shitty upbringing, a shitty home, and possibly a shitty life in general. It's probably better to be unborn than lead a life of misery. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.